Hi, welcome to another beautiful Wednesday at the Always Believer podcast. My name is Eddie Edna, and I'm your host, of course. I'm super excited to be interviewing this Wonder Woman. I followed her online a while ago by now, and she said yes to an interview. She's part of the Team Flyer community right now. And I'm just super excited because her story, no matter what walk of life, no matter what time of her storyline you hear her from, it's just so inspiring and raw and real, and it's just very powerful. And that's what we're all about over here at The Always Believer, as you guys already know, of course. So without really further ado, because we just want to dive right into it, today's guest is Lorraine. Hi.
Hi, Ariadna. It's very nice to be with you today. Thank you so much.
I'm so thrilled, like I said, to have you here today to just, be able to listen to your story firsthand. And even though you have loads to tell us really quickly about your backstory, like where you're from and where are you at right now.
So, oh God, that's such a long story, though. I'm gonna make it real short. So I was born in Spain. My mother's from the States. My dad is Spanish, and I'm a writer by trade. I've made a living with words most of my life. I've survived a number of things, including clinical depression several times, anxiety, extreme anxiety, a life-threatening eating disorder that lasted 20 years, family members with alcoholism, a person in my family who tried to commit suicide but survived, and many other things, divorce, poverty after the divorce, and finding myself in midlife with two young children, no money, no source of income, and just a little tiny bit of hope. And now I'm 56, almost 57, and I'm at I think not even at the peak. I don't think I've peaked yet, which is pretty interesting. Because a lot of people my age, let me turn off the notifications that might
It might
interrupt
be while
our
we're recording.
great. Yeah, I
We
thought
just
I was really sure I had turned this off, and I don't know how to turn
No
it back on.
worries. We're very
Good.
natural here.
Okay, so let me see. Goodness, now I can't see you. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Is that
so
okay? Can't see you, so I'll keep on going. So yeah, at 56, I don't feel I've peaked yet. I am filled with dreams and hope, and I'm not always positive. I have challenges every day as a parent and as a business owner, and health-wise as well. But I do run my own digital company, which has 3 websites and a number of social media handles. And Viva 50 Media basically supports a family of 5, although my eldest is now living in California. But to me, she's still my daughter and my responsibility to a certain extent. So yeah, I'm good.
you're good. There you go. That was one heck of a summary without a doubt. Because like we were saying, there's so many stories that you can bring and you can talk about within, like that's what we're all about. So Go to Fly is definitely sharing overcoming battles and people who have inspiring stories much like yours. And when we're talking, like putting into words, what can we say about your story? It's definitely, we're going to definitely talk about Viva 50 and what you're all about there. But before we dive into that again, you also talked a little bit about what you said about going to poverty. I know you've shared your food stamp story, and you wanted to give like a shout out to like the SNAP program from like the articles that I've read that you've, talked about it.
Yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit about that,
of
please?
course. So yes, so I moved from Spain to Florida when I was 41, and I had a baby and a 3-year-old and my then husband. And I have always made a living with words, interpreting them, editing them, translating them. And when I got to Florida, I had just published one of my latest books that I was super proud of about pregnancy in Spain with a big publisher. And I couldn't do the book tour. I couldn't do anything. I arrived in Florida with my kids and had to start over. and found myself like, wow, I can't just stay at home, you know. And then my then husband lost his job, so I had to hustle, and I found myself, I somehow convinced Palm Beach Post to interview me as an author, and then I got a gig with them as a reporter when I'd never done it before. I was a writer, but I wasn't a reporter. And the editor, younger than me, said writers make very poor reporters because they like to make things up, and you know. So, but she gave me the chance, and I worked with them for 4 years, and I did it remotely, as I've always worked. But anyway, so my marriage was not okay. It had not been okay for a long time, but I came from a very traumatic divorce, and I didn't want my kids to go through that if possible. So I really, and for anybody out there going through, you know, some problems in their marriage or relationship, one thing that when I look back, I can say with confidence is that I tried everything. Like if you're contemplating any kind of divorce that's going to impact children, especially, I don't have any regrets because I tried absolutely everything from couples therapy to a separation under the same roof to, which was awful, to a seminar of self-improvement where my then husband and I both went, and you know, it was everything. And so when I walked away, I was confident that that was it. I mean, that there was nothing else I could try that was going to make that work. So that was one thing. And then, but then when I left that marriage, and I was, God, I forget if it was 44 or 45, but I walked away with absolutely nothing. I had piles of debt because my husband had not had to work for a long time. He was working in the housing market. He was a project manager for a luxury home builder, and you know, so that wasn't happening. That was the bust, you know.
Yeah, the crisis, wasn't it?
Yeah.
2008.
Yeah, and so I didn't have any work because publishers didn't want translations or writing or publishing books, and the Palm Beach Post let everybody of their staff go, including the freelancers, and I was part of that. So I didn't have a source of income, and I did not know. I haven't had a job by choice because I like to work for myself, and I've successfully done so for my whole life. So here I am at in my mid 40s, not knowing how I'm going to put food on the table, piles of debt, which later led to bankruptcy, which was very traumatic in itself, facing divorce. I got a little bit of help from my family because my dad said, come back to Spain. And I'm like, no, because I don't want my kids to grow up without their dad. And that I understood. That was a big priority for me, is that I wanted them to have their father close by. And so I decided to stay. But I just couldn't, I couldn't find anything. I tried, I would have done anything. But the point is that because I didn't have the experience and I was in midlife, I was unemployable. So I remember applying even in warehouses to move stuff around or whatever. I don't,
Just
something, but
basically anything. Yeah, exactly.
nothing. And so, it was hard because I had it was not my first crisis in my life, but it was the first one where I was responsible for these two little people,
Exactly,
my
which
children.
is, it makes so much of a difference, of course.
And I was completely, very far from friends and family. And, one day, I don't even know how I thought I was going to survive. But so the girls would go, my children, then 4 and 7, would go to a neighbor's. I moved into a little tiny apartment with the help of my sister and my father and my grandmother. And, they were all sending me money and help. And so I was able to do that. The rent was very modest, but I still had to pay rent. And I used to piggyback off the Wi-Fi of a neighbor. And I could hardly pump gas. The gas was so expensive back then. And so I remember that there was a neighbor, I think she was from Romania, and she had a bunch of kids, and she would invite my girls over for dinner.
Oh.
And I would let them go. She would say, you come too. And I was like, no, that's okay. They can go. But then one day I find out that the reason why she was doing that is because my children were telling her that there was no food in the fridge,
Oh,
which was true.
goodness. Yeah.
And so a friend of mine, when I was a very much younger, a friend of mine said to me, you know, why don't you apply for food stamps? And I said, well, that's for poor people. But then I'm like, wait a minute, you know, if there is no food in the fridge, I am poor. And so I did piggyback off the neighbor's Wi-Fi and Googled how to apply for food stamps. So I did, and I qualified, over more than qualified. And then, you know, it was interesting because I also was in the middle of getting a divorce. And then when I went to do all the paperwork, because we didn't use lawyers or anything, the the county declared me. There's my great dog making himself heard.
Just making sure that he's present in this conversation.
This is one of the things about working from home. So you
Oh yeah, I totally understand. You would definitely also work from home, and we have pets, and our dog just goes randomly barking. You're like, all right, love. Yes, it's the
yeah, like, oh, now you're
mailman.
gonna give me a heart attack. So the point is that when I, you know, the fee for filing the divorce or whatever was waived because they declared me indigent. And I remember telling a friend, and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm great. This is great. I don't have to pay. I don't have money. I don't have to pay. I'm indigent." You know. But so it was, you know, the first day that my children and I walked up the stairs of our little condo with groceries, and I was able to say, yes, buy the Cheerios, yes, get this, you know, it's okay. They were like, it was like Christmas.
Christmas, right? That's what it feels like.
I will never forget that, you know. So that those were very, very tough times. And then I got help from so many people, because it's, you know, one thing that I learned is that I could not be proud. I had to be open because I had these two little girls. So the school where I had volunteered and where I had helped and I had done translations for them and all this, they would give my daughters clothes, they gave them socks, they
Oh,
gave them
that's so
underwear.
sweet. That's why we
The
love community.
Yeah, the secretary said to me, and she was embarrassed asking, but she said, would you like to be put on the charity Christmas list? And I said, yes, please. And so one day, well, they said they're going to arrive to your house on a Saturday or whatever. And these ladies came up the stairs with two like trash bags filled with gifts for the girls. And then they gave me a gift card and they said, this is to help you with your Christmas dinner. Of
Oh,
course I cried. Of
of
course I hugged
course.
them. And of course I give to charity every Christmas now. And another unexpected thing that happened back then, which makes me, you know, believe in people so much. There were many, many, many things, but one of them was that I had to sell, like I didn't have anything really, but the 1 month I realized, goodness, I'm not going to be able to pay the rent. Like my dad gave me a little bit of money from my grandmother and this and that, and people had helped me so much that I, you know, and everybody was also waging their own battle because it was hard times. And so, and not only here, the recession was global, really.
Everywhere, yeah.
So I did find that I had a box of jewelry, and this box of jewelry had, you know, a bunch of family heirlooms that had been given to me, gifts that had been given to my kids when they were born, a ring that my grandfather was wearing when he died, things that my grandmother, who was still alive then, had given me. And I thought, this is, I can sell this and pay the rent. But when I went to the well, first I asked my grandmother if she minded, and you know, she said, well, just do what you have to do. And so I went to sell it, and my then 4-year-old had no clue what was going on. She was looking at all the bling and, you know, look, mama, look at this,
Look
that.
at those sparkles.
Yeah, and I thought I was just going to go and sell it because that's how you do it in Spain. You know, I'd done it when I was younger just to buy a pair of boots or something, but this was like a serious business. And no, here they weigh every darn little thing
Oh,
and they make sure it's
wow.
gold and they take pictures of it. The whole thing lasted like a couple hours. It's not like I had,
Wow.
so it was heartrending. It was because I was handing out everything and I had to be present for it. It's this big ordeal. So it was very, very, very hard because I had time to think. I'm seeing all of
Exactly. Yeah,
this.
you do have time to think then. Because you know
Yeah, and
me,
you're
like I
seeing.
also lived in Spain for 16 years, so I know like when
Mhm,
you exchange, jewelry,
mhm.
it's so quick and easy. You're like, all right, bye.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah. And they give you the money and that's that. They weigh it, boom, there you go. Well, here it's not that. If you ever have to do that, it's pretty painful if you're giving away things that mean something to you. So, well, anyway, the guy cut me a check and it was enough exactly to pay the rent. And I used to go to dance classes, and I'm a big proponent for mental health. Like sports has always helped me. And I started having depressions when I was 16 or so. And so running and dancing and now doing yoga and all this has always played a really important part in my mental and physical and emotional health. So then, although this might sound absolutely, um, you know, oh goodness, like a frivolous thing to do, but I went every Friday to a dance studio where I took dance classes. I was doing salsa and ballroom and having a bunch of fun. And for that couple of hours, I would think of nothing. I was just dancing and enjoying myself. And, it was sometimes I took the girls when they were with their dad, I wouldn't. But anyway, I made friends there. And this younger school teacher one day, she took me for coffee after the dance classes. And she said, "How are things?" I told her what was going on. And when I explained that I had sold all my jewelry, she said, "So did they give you good money?" And I said, "I don't know. I was able to pay the rent," but I was not being like, "Oh my God," I was just explaining what had happened. And she said, "I have something for you. I would like you to come home with me." And I went with her, and she went to her room and brought out something that she put in my hand. And they were two sets of engagement and wedding rings of her two failed marriages.
Oh wow.
Like she was this person that was already like jaded in love, and but she had been keeping them, and she told me that she had been keeping them for somebody special, and that was me. And she said, "Go sell this and feed your girls, pay the rent, do whatever you need to do." This was late at night, and I remember it was a different town from where I lived, and I drove home crying. It was raining, and I will never forget the windshield
Oh.
wipers, just and me thinking, because also I told her Facebook had just started, and I said, "I want to thank you on Facebook and whatever." And she's like, "What just happened is between you, me, and God." Eventually, I asked her permission to tell the story in public, but not, not who she was or anything. But the thing is that when I was driving home and I did sell the jewelry and I did get the money again for the rent, I was like, I just can't keep off living other people's charity. I really need to show them that all they're doing for me and my children, I'm worthy of this trust. So I somehow, again, I told you I really couldn't get a job. So another guy from the same dance class, he saw on Facebook that I was a writer, and he said, "I see you're a writer." And I'm like, "Yes." So he says, "I need somebody to write some blog posts for this website I have." And he paid me peanuts. It was 12 bucks a blog post. He said, "But they have to be SEO friendly." And I had no idea what that meant. I had been blogging because, just for the relief of it, but that was it. So that was my first gig online. And then I thought, wow, okay, this isn't literature. My name is not on this, thank goodness. But I got a
But
paycheck
you got a paycheck,
and I was
exactly.
writing again.
Which
And
makes it
then
even better.
somebody else hired me to do a website for them, not a website, but the copy. And then somebody that was $1,000. And then somebody else was hiring me for something else. And like in a almost record time, I realized I don't have to change gears. I don't have to find a different job. I can still write. I just have to do it online. And that was like this thing and the short of it is that right now with my digital presence, I do make six figures. My family, the whole family lives off of this. Our biggest issue is cash flow as all small companies, but The point is that I was able to continue doing what I loved. I just became obsessed with doing it online, and I've always worked for myself. So this was like, wow, I cannot even believe that I can
Oh,
continue doing what I've always wanted to do, but now I do it online, and I make a
ex-
better living than I've ever made. So it's
exactly. And it's been 12 years down the road because that was the recession of 2018, sorry. It's been 12 wonderful years.
2008,
2008, right? Yeah.
2008, yeah. So yeah, that was, I mean, and this is all like, to me, it's goodness, if I could do this, and I'm 56, making a living online, how many people think, oh, I can't do this, I can't. Man, if
Exactly. It
I
doesn't
can do
matter
it
the
at
age. That's why I
56,
love your vibe. I mean, I still got,
anybody can do this.
yeah, definitely. And I love that. I love that. Like when you're starting to share your story, you start right from the beginning, more or less, to like that kind of breaking point of saying, what can I do? And, have value of that because people are believing in you and trusting you, but you're like, yeah. Because with her and her story, with Lorraine here, we're just laughing right now because, like I said, we can always see each other through our you guys
I'm
hear
giving him a
us, but we
treat.
can we see each other. She's giving the dog a treat, kind of like yo. And I know a lot of you have like love animals, and you know that I'm always sharing my animals on my feed, so I think they're used to it. Poor thing.
Yeah, but
The
sometimes
amount of
it's
times
like,
you have your dog, you're like, all right, here, have a treat, be quiet,
my
calm down for
husband is
now.
like, he's going to give us a heart attack.
Because there's like those loud barks in the middle of
And
nowhere. I
he's
know.
normal, and suddenly like, "Rah."
Exactly.
Like the UPS
We
guy,
have.
they throw the packages from afar and then they
Oh
run.
my god. We have a German
No
Shepherd,
kidding.
so and
Oh
she
man.
exactly. With her and her bark, it's like watch out. I mean, she's very loving, but like if you don't know her, she's
Oh,
gonna go.
too. It sounds like it's gonna rip you apart, like your legs and everything.
All right. So what we're saying is that you can make a living offline and you can actually, make it happen no matter what has happened in your life, as long as believe in yourself and work for it, of course, not just a matter of like, oh, I'm poor and I can have all the charity in the world and I stay there. No, 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 no. You pushed forward, you continue doing something, and you kind of had that light bulb moment of saying, this is it. Like, let's see what we can do. And one of the things apart from your story is and this one in particular about the dance classes, that you're right,
Oh
it might
man.
sound like frivolous, but it's like it's so important to have that me time and that self-love and self-care no matter like what part of life you're going through. And little, like as you could see now, of course, thanks to that, you had the contacts, the first contacts, was they started in your dance class, didn't they?
Yes, I mean it would certainly not have, because I didn't really have a social life. I had a couple of friends here and there, but there was nothing. I mean, I didn't have to go to jobs, so I didn't, I went to some networking meetings, but they were weird because what was I doing? I didn't really have, I didn't think I had much to offer. So that was just a place where I went to, yeah,
Be free
to
and have
just have
fun.
fun. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's interesting because there's still some YouTube videos out there of me dancing, and you can see the girls running around, my children. Like,
Oh,
it was an alcohol-free zone, and they are, they remember that time, interestingly, as one of the funnest
oh,
times in their
that's
life.
so sweet. That is very, very
It
sweet.
is. Because I was like, now I can tell them, wow, well, some days I couldn't get out of bed. And it's true.
And
Some
it's
days were
true.
very
I love
hard.
that you have a really open communication with them.
Yeah.
I know how much like family means to you because we see it online presence. Like you're
Yeah.
always hanging out with the girls and just like going running with them as well. At least one of them, right?
Yeah. The youngest now wants to run with me. I don't force her. She asked me, oh, you want to go running? And I'm like, wow. But I used to run with my dad. So I understand that. And I don't take it for granted because I've also shared my parenting struggles, and I've had them with my eldest, and I'm having new ones with another of the kids. And but the point being that that, as I was telling one of the kids yesterday, is that life struggles never stop. You just have to learn to deal with them. So you have struggles at 16, but you have to get ready. There's not an excuse to do this or do that, because later in life you're going to have more struggles. And if you
Mm-hmm.
respond in a negative way that is harmful for yourself, then that's the way you're going to do it all your life. So I think I was very lucky that well, I don't know if lucky, but my dad kind of unknowingly probably instilled this love of sports in me, and this situation where him and we butted heads a lot, of course, because that's what teens do. But there was this time when we went running together that was great because we're both looking that direction and we're talking, and it's kind of like being in the car when you're with a kid, but we're moving forward and we're doing something together that's, making us, sweat. And so that became a very important part of my life forever. And now as a parent, it's something that I share with my kids too.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I do agree
And
with
I
what you said that like you had sports all your life, and that's super fundamental as well. If you already had that habit, it's easier to
yeah,
like transfer it to your kids, of course.
yeah. I mean, and they've grown up coming with me to dance studios, to gyms, um, to yoga studios. They've seen me race. They're the youngest, and I have just signed up to a race for Mother's Day. So it's when they think it's normal, that's what normal people do. That's what I thought. I thought everybody exercises, everybody. And I was one of the first people in Spain to go running in the street, and that was when people would definitely harass you, and
Oh, yeah.
it was hard, but I did it.
Yeah, Spain has come a long way, thankfully. But it just happened a few years ago, what it feels like at the same time. But that's like Spanish history and whatnot. That's incredible that you saw the
That's
difference
a whole
happen. That's a
different.
whole different thing. Exactly what's going on in Spain right now. So, I know you've always been writing because when I was like researching and you sent me a bunch of articles that, to read about you, and I love them, that your grandfather, had own printing press. That's when your love of writing and publishing began, like you were telling us. You wrote your first book before you were 30, if I'm not mistaken, and you are the content creator of like many huge names, of course, like NBC Press. I have like the list right here in front of me, like HuffPost, Baby Magazine, Latina, and tons more. You were at Oprah, etc. Um, so how was that journey like the writing journey and publishing your first book before 30?
So my father didn't want me to be a writer because he was a writer. My grandfather was a writer, and he didn't think there was any money in that. He was right to a certain extent, but he had this obsession with me being a marine biologist, and I didn't finish college in the end because I was battling this eating disorder and depression and all this, and I didn't. I started studying psychology, and I think a lot of people who study that is because you need it, like apply to
Agreed.
yourself.
Agreed.
I didn't finish to this day. I wish I had, of course, but it's not my time now. I've kind of almost made peace with that part. Maybe I'll change my mind. Who knows? But the point is that I always had this. I grew up watching my dad and my grandfather write, and my grandfather also painted. So I also love to paint and draw. I don't do it as much as I'd like to, but my daughter does it. And I remember when I was super young, like 8 years old, I did a little storybook for school, and my sister drew it. I did the words, my dad printed it, and we handed out at school, handed it out. And so anyway, all my life while I was struggling with eating disorder, I found ways, what I thought, let's see, how can I control this? And I thought, well, what if I become a fitness instructor? Then I can exercise all day and this will be it. And of course, that wasn't the answer, but I did become a fitness instructor and did that for 15 years while I also taught languages and worked at sound studios, adapting scripts from English to Spanish. And I was an interpreter. I was Cindy Crawford's interpreter when she did her Rev on tour in 92. And I did the Olympics and so many interesting things that I didn't realize were interesting back then. But anyway, the point is that I was still lost, very, very lost, because I was doing all these gigs, but I didn't have this career that I wanted to have as a writer. And I was 29 in a pretty toxic relationship, and I realized that I've gone from toxic relationship to toxic relationship until the present one, because when I wasn't okay with myself, I was just attracting and settling for the person that that would just kind of, I don't know, abuse me, I
Just
guess, in a way. And and anyway, so I was about to turn 30 and I thought I really need to do something significant with myself that I'm proud of before I turn 30. And I had been keeping journals about my eating disorder and my depression since I was 18. So by that time I had so much to tap into. And I wrote that book about my eating disorder. I wanted to write a novel, first of all. I wanted to be a real writer. And that was what I thought. A real writer did not write about themselves, they wrote a novel. But I couldn't. And I realized, wow, this is the story I have to tell though. So I did it. It was hard. But I pumped that out in 4 weeks because I had all these notes and I set aside all my other work as a translator, interpreter, and anything else I was doing, sat down, wrote that darn book. And the thing is that I didn't know that you needed an agent. I didn't know how things were done. So I kind of bluffed my way into it. And I would, back then, we're talking about Spain, there's no internet, there's no, faxes are just starting. I had a fax at home. Cell phones were just starting. There were these big bricks. So anyway, I would send queries to, and I had no idea how the publishing industry worked or had contacts or any of that. I sent letters to real letters, like that you put in the
Like
mail.
actual letters.
Yes.
Snail mail, yes, those kind of letters.
Or maybe actually sometimes I fax because that would make you stand out. Not everybody had a fax.
True.
So I sent these queries to publishers that published the kind of book that I had written. And then I would write to TV programs and national newspapers in Spain saying, I have written this book that's being considered by publishers. That was true. I mean, I had sent it, right? So, and then they said, oh, well, we want to interview you because nobody knew what an eating disorder was and this and that and the other. And then I would send a fax to the publisher saying, I'm going to be on national TV tonight. So they would watch it. And then they're like, oh, crap, if you can do this before the book is even anything, what? So I got 5 or 6,
Wow. Proposals.
Yeah,
Or
to
offers
publish
in this
my
case,
book.
yeah.
I don't know if I went with the best one, probably not. And pissed off a couple of other publishers because nobody expected a young writer to be just doing this, especially when they knew the book was commercial, and all that. Anyway, so that's what happened. And I got a lot of attention, which poised me for a terrible relapse because I was not ready. Back then you couldn't give an email address. So I set up a post office, PO box in case anybody, felt what I had felt and they wanted to, well, the first time I went, the letters piled out. So I always went with a bag to get all those letters and I answered them. So eventually I had to do like a form reply to everybody, but I signed it and I put it in the mail and all this stuff until this young girl wrote to me saying that if I didn't answer her a certain way, whatever, she was going to kill herself.
Oh, goodness.
And I thought, I can't do this.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't do this. And I was on a lot of, again, the book got so much coverage that I was not ready for. And then I realized, because the publisher wanted me to keep on writing about the same stuff, right? And I did. But then I thought, they're inviting me to these TV programs and I can be a person who, the bulimic or the whatever, who is a writer or wrote a book, or I can be the writer who happened to be bulimic. And as hard as for a young ego that is, I turned down any interview after that where they were going to ask me how much money I spent on food or how did I throw up or whatever. So then I said, if you're going to ask me about my next book, that's a novel, well, I'll go. If you want to ask me the gory details, they're in the book, so you don't have to interview me. It was a hard decision because, when I was younger, of course you want the attention, and it's now it's an easy call, but back then I always thought, well, what would have happened if I had continued? Would I be some kind of celebrity? Who knows? But the thing is, I feel very happy with my decision, and I actually didn't talk a lot about my eating disorder until after that, until I was sure that I had beat it. And it's been 20 years since I can say I was.
Congratulations, seriously.
Really, I mean, it really does feel like a different person, it happened to somebody else, but I had the eating disorder for 20 years, and then I've been free of it for 20 years. So
Exactly.
finally, when recently actually I published this series of photos of myself and all the details, and I think that's how I found you.
I think so,
So
yeah. Because I've been anorexic and depressed and anxiety, and I mean, my whole story, I think there's plenty of podcast episodes and blog posts about it, of course, about being sexually abused. I've had alcoholic parents, and just there's so much going on that led me to be anorexic and bulimic very shortly, but definitely like not eating. I was like
it's not
the
no fun.
one, yeah, no fun at all. That's why I was like, I'd rather not eat, and I didn't eat for days. Ended up
Yeah.
in the hospital. Like it's a whole thing. So I feel like that's one of the reasons probably why we connected because
Yeah.
because of course, like, I saw your story and I'm like, oh my God, like, it's so powerful to say like, oh, overcome it. It's been 20 years. Any sorts of addiction of anything, it's really hard to overcome. So the fact that, you've been overcoming it, I love it. That
Believe it,
led
to be
me,
quite honest. Sometimes I'm like, really? It's like it happened to somebody else. And the thing is, it's when people ask me like, and how exactly did you do it? There's a very small, if you're like me, of course, you've read everything about this. There's a small percentage of people who recover spontaneously. I mean, not that I didn't try a bunch of stuff from 12-step meetings to therapy to all this stuff, right? But in addition to that, I could still be struggling, but I'm not,
yeah, exactly. There
which
you
is
go.
a
Yeah, which
miracle to
is
me,
a
like a
miracle in its
complete,
own because
yes.
we're still, I mean, this is a whole different conversation. I do want to get into like your Viva 50 and whatnot, but that was lined up with who I am, of course, because like you said, not only beating it, but also being consistent, because being consistent in anything is obviously good in the way of like moving forward and pushing yourself and knowing that, you're just a completely different person and you don't need to be tied down by numbers or by any other thing that can involve being anorexic or having an eating disorder in general. Um, and that was one of the things that drew me to you. And the other thing was you being 56 and doing these yoga poses and just being like, you can be beautiful no matter what age, you can do whatever you like. And for me, I'm not 56, obviously, I'm just 31. But still, it's like, it doesn't matter what stage you are in life. I love people who shine like you because we all deserve to shine. And that's, I don't know, I loved your vibe and your energy. And I'm listening to your story here and I can feel myself. I'm like super nervous talking to you and I'm super honest about it. Like we're honest about having the dogs in the background.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
because for me, it's just, you've done so much and your posts and it helps a whole lot. And it doesn't matter if I'm not 56 yet. It still helps the 31-year-old. It helps the 20-year-old. I show it to her as well, friends who are younger and cousins and whatnot. I love what you stand for and your message. So I feel like I get jittery. See, I get jittery and I get nervous. And I'm like, I'm talking to like what you're saying before, like a celebrity. I'm like, I feel like I'm talking to one of
Oh,
my, like,
oh
no, my
God.
husband knows all about it. He's like, oh my God, you're so excited. I'm like, I know I am. I have to keep my cool. Oh my God, I can't. So I obviously can't. Like this is the result of.
That is absolutely fine. But one of the things that I've noticed is that, especially on Instagram, people who follow me are not necessarily my age. Like the bulk of it is younger people. From 25 to 35 is the first, and the second one is 35 to 45.
That's
And the
impressive.
last one is my age group, which is 55 to 65. And those are a little bit less. So I'm starting to speak more to younger people because I see that that's who's following me,
Exactly. And you're
and
like
that's
that.
important.
That's super important. And I know like we use Instagram more and we use social media more and all that stuff. Of course, that goes more into marketing than anything else. Um, but we see you as that example, that you're so raw and real and you're like, oh wow, okay, let's keep going. It doesn't stop here,
I think it is that there's this idea that, I mean, people are scared of aging. I have this one vlog on YouTube where I talk about fear of aging. I thought I was speaking to women my age. So the people that are commenting on it are 16, 20, 25, and they're scared. They're like really, really, really paralyzed by this fear of getting older. And so that's who I'm talking to now, because I realized, wow, I thought my audience was women my age. Mm-mm. It's, you know, because when you reach a certain age, and it's not general, but there are people my age who are jaded and feel like the best days are over and all this, and I cannot relate to that. But I try, of course, to say that's not true. Your best days are not over. But the people who really are concerned and scared are the young people. And to me, that is very important that we grab and give them some direction. Like I can do it at home with my children. They already know. They're like, guess how old my mom is, and look what she's doing. You know, they find it hilarious. Um, but I don't want to influence only my kids. If I have this platform, why not help other younger women? Because I know what it's like to be young, and I know what it's like to be, you know, the good thing of being older is you are all those other ages. And I do have a very strong connection to how I felt and who I was at all those ages. So that insecurity and that, oh my God, in the future, and I only have like until I think everybody wants to get older until they're 20, and they're like, oh crap, now time's going faster, you know. And then I see a lot of people turning 30
lot.
and not okay about it. And they're like, dirty 30, it's, oh my God, you know. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, guys, it's okay. It's great. You know, you're 30, it's great. You're 40, it's great. You're 12, it's great. Like every age has its thing. There is no such thing as a bad age. My God, the only age that's bad is being dead. You know, and
Exactly.
I've lost so many friends in the past years that just when people say, what are you grateful for? I'm like, well, that I got out of bed this morning and I'm alive. You know, and I'm not
Amen.
kidding. I've had
Preach. It's
friends
true.
die in their sleep. And I have to kind of make a joke of this because otherwise I'd be in bed not wanting to get out and depressed. But yeah, one of my school friends, we went to school together. He died in his sleep, you know, and he was a year younger, and I only discovered it when we, you know, put him to rest. But it, you know, when you're confronted with that, like I miss one of my best friend. I miss her all the time, and she died a year and a half ago. So then when she used to tell me, and she was younger than me by a couple of years, and she was like, why are people afraid of dying? She had kids the same age as mine, and she said, all I want to do is grow older and see them grow up. So sometimes we do need these reminders of, goodness, like I'm the biggest neurotic on this earth. I can spin my wheels all day, but I know this. So then that self-awareness is what has helped me divert that to positive stuff, because it could go either way. You know, I can obsess about the most negative thing in my life, or I can say, hey, yeah, let's take it
Mm.
over here because I can see where you're going. I have an addictive personality, and instead of, you know, doing drugs or doing all this self-destructive stuff that I used to do with eating disorder, well, then I put it into working, and I put it into taking a yoga teacher training. I put it into creating content, taking beautiful
Exactly.
pictures. You
Positive
know,
think.
I'm always trying to, like, creative people are usually a little bit messed up, but that's what makes us good at what we do. It's
I
true.
agree though. I'm very
So, you
creative
know,
and
like, and the thing is that, like, even with my younger daughter, I tell her, you know, being a little messed up can be something positive if you know how to harness it.
if you know, exactly. And that's the way that what's beautiful what you do is exactly what I was telling you at the beginning. It's that kind of example because it is. I love that you actually said that, you know, a lot of people who follow you are 16, 20, 25, 30 because they see that in you. And it's that kind of, you know, swirl mode, and that you took that platform into something positive, of course. Because you could have just, you know,
Yeah.
be like, oh, I'm here just for the 50-year-olds, you know, and you're like, no, let me, you know, expand it.
I get upset at the women who say 50 is better than 30. No, it isn't. You know, if you could go back and make yourself 30 with everything you know, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
You know, because
exactly.
well, I don't agree. I don't think 50 is better than anything, or 60 is better than 50. I think that 20 is fabulous, 30 is too. And whoever says that younger people are not, you know, there's a bunch of young, empowered people, you know, and I am really trying to make a conscious effort to even give my business to those women, because, you know, if I find out, like, if somebody can do my taxes and it's a guy and the other one is a woman and she's young, I'm going to go for her, because I believe in youth. And, you know, it's almost like a duty to help these young people. Like, who are you to when people start insulting younger generations, and I understand why younger people insult older generations. It's
just the way of life,
well, it is,
essentially.
and it is. And the thing is, every freaking generation has done this. So
Every
then
single
when I
one.
see older women saying, "Oh, but they're whatever, and they're 20, and they're well, let them be 20, let them wear the shorts, let them do whatever," because don't why if you're miserable with yourself is when you cannot see the beauty in others, and that happens at any age. So yeah, I don't get along with people who do that.
I agree completely. Just let
Especially
them
with older
be,
women. I
you know.
can't I can't I
It's
can't
okay.
even have that conversation.
No, no, not
Very
at all.
rude.
And I love that because you're still very youthful, and I love that
Oh,
you can be youthful at every age as well. I feel like I have younger siblings, and they're all in their teenagers. They're, goodness, how old are they now? Like between 14 and 17 or something like that. They're
mhm.
like, how are you so big now? But apart from that, I hang out with them, I do TikToks with them, we talk about girl talk, we talk about this, and just keeping that youthfulness alive as well, and just helping them. Yeah, I'm 15 years older than you, and that's big because my life is completely different than yours at, at 14, of course. But yeah, just being there, like that guiding hand that they need, and just be like, just be yourself, just hang in there, And I love that, and I love it. Just it keeps you youthful because that's what I've been told about myself as well, that I don't look my age, and not because I don't act my age, but just because you're surrounding yourself with people younger in a good way, helping them, and they help you keep yourself young. And like, of course, you don't look your age, like or feel it at least.
I also have friends who are. I have this one friend, Pauline. She's 81 or 82, I forgot. But spending time with her is so fabulous because she's not an old lady. She is this person who I went to visit her. She had some trouble physically, and I went to visit her in this kind of little clinic and all that. And she was bossing the other 80-year-olds, like, why do they have such bad posture? She's a yoga teacher. And she was sitting there cross-legged. She had makeup on. I was like, goodness, be
Love
like
it.
Pauline.
Oh my gosh, I
It's
love
so
it. Because
so
we all
to
need
her,
that in
I'm
our
a kid,
lives. Yeah, exactly.
but
And
to
we
her,
all
I'm a
need
kid,
that in our lives.
and we
Yeah,
do.
yeah. I love that. I love that you have a Pauline in your life.
I do. Everybody should have one.
Exactly. And love it. So, going back a little bit to what you were saying with Viva 50, tell us a little bit now, because I mean, we're almost done with the podcast episode. Like, there's so much to talk to you with and about, but Viva 50, what's it all about? What's the message? And I know it's bilingual, so we can also promote that, both in Spanish and in English.
So I launched that when I was 50, and I had been the editor-in-chief of a large Latina mom website. And I thought, it's time for me to do something else because I'm turning 50 and I'm a Latina mom. Oh my God. Let me see. Wait a minute. Built-in microphone. I think I lost my microphone.
I think so too. We can hear you a little bit lower, but it's all right.
Can I speak like this and still?
I'm sure you can. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, well,
Just have to put their audio a little bit louder on their behalf. That's all good.
oh God. Well, my wireless just went out. I could feel them leaving me, but I was like,
No. Hang on for 10 more minutes.
goes that. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, now I cannot hear you because it went to my AirPods. This is
Oh, that's hilarious. This is, technical difficulties. You have the dog. This is real life. This is
wait,
literally real life.
I'm gonna have to put these away or something. Let's see. How about now?
All right. Can you hear me now?
All right.
We were talking a little bit about Viva 50. All right. So while she tries to fix a little bit of what's going on with her, which is
Wait, let's see if
absolutely
this is
fine.
gonna work.
Oh, is she
Let's see.
back?
Okay.
Can you hear us now, love?
Yeah. Now I can hear you.
All right. Perfect. All right.
Well, they're gonna probably die and we'll have to continue the other way, but that's okay.
All right.
So I launched Viva 50 at 50, or right before I turned 50 or right after I turned 50, because I just knew that, I was writing for a bunch of websites, and I was the editor-in-chief of this website for Latina moms. And I thought, what can I do for the next 5 to 10 years? This is always something I ask myself that I'm crazy about and that I can, be passionate about, and that is a little different from what everybody else is doing. So then I thought, wow, what about a website, for women who are 50? Because at that age, I was so happy that I was turning 50. I had just remarried happily to the love of my life. And I can say that now because I've lived a long time, had other loves, and they were not the loves of my life.
So
And
congratulations.
so, thank you. I was professionally in a wonderful place. I felt physically okay. That was before menopause and health scares and stuff. I felt physically okay again. But, I was just all over happy. And I thought, wow, this is great. Nobody told me how great it feels to turn 50. But then when I shared it online, people were like, oh my God, why are you telling everybody your age? You're not going to get any work, and this and that. And brands aren't going to want to work with you and whatever. Why are you pigeonholing yourself? And I thought, you know what? F it all. I'm going to do what I want to do, and we'll see what happens. I had always made myself a promise when I was younger that I would never allow myself to feel bad about my age or embarrassed by it or anything, because I grew up watching my dad do that, and I didn't like it. And I didn't think it was a good use of my time or energy or any of that. I don't know where I got that wisdom, but hey.
It's important
So,
wisdom to have. A lot of people need it.
it's like, well, and I didn't even know what I was going to call the site. I wanted it to be Latino, but in English and in Spanish and all this. And I came up with a bunch of names like Latina Prime, but then Prime could seem something else, Latina Plus, but maybe people could think it's plus size. I don't know. There were so many things. And then one day I'm running.
Oh, we just lost her. She keeps.
That was taken.
There you
The
go.
number.
We lost her for a few seconds there.
And now we're back up with the other microphone, so you can hear
Yep.
me. I'm not even going to touch what I have in my ears. So
You were running.
I was running, and I came up with Viva 50, and I thought I wanted the number, but the number as a URL was taken. So I thought Viva and 50. I am looking at my screen telling me that my earpods are failing.
No, we can't hear you right now. It keeps going back and forth, sadly.
Okay, let's see if, what about now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. So Viva 50 with letters, then I felt, well, it's a word in English, it's a word in Spanish, and that's it. It's going to be about, wonderful things about life after 50 in English and in Spanish. And I did not know whether the website would be profitable. I had managed large websites with humongous budgets, so I knew how hard it is to get the traffic and the sponsors and this and that. But I made it, or it made itself, I don't know, profitable in less than a year. And 7 years later, Viva 50 Media has 3 different websites, a bunch of other stuff that we do. And I also create content for other people. And I write for NBC News and for ARP and for Mom.me and for, a number of magazines and do different things. And it takes care of our entire family, and we make 6 figures. The biggest issue I have is what I think all small businesses have, which is cash flow, which is hard to deal with sometimes. But other than that, I am 200% happy with, and I did think that older women would read it, but the interesting part is that because since I became a certified yoga teacher, I decided to focus more on health, because I realized, what a important part of my life that's been and continues to be, and how we're not taught this. Like, I already knew this and I've always done it, but most people don't realize that what they do or they don't do when they're 20 is going to affect how they live when they're 50. So many, many people my age that I know have all these debilitating diseases that could have been prevented. Like, there are certain things that I've learned that you can take the best care of yourself and you can still get sick. That is, of course, true. But it's also true that if you exercise, you sleep well, you eat right, et cetera, you have, like, my blood pressure is normal. I don't have bone density issues. I don't have high cholesterol. I don't have heart problems that I know of. I'm on top of my checkups, and I do my part in keeping myself mobile and healthy, but not only for myself, because I don't want my kids to be pushing me around in a wheelchair before I have to be in one. I don't want to be a burden to anybody. So I feel that taking care of ourselves is a responsibility to your loved ones. And so that has become a humongous part of Viva 50 and a huge part of the brand collaborations I do. And when I act as a spokesperson or whatever, is usually to raise awareness around the fact that taking care of you when you're younger and when you're older is going to result in a better you all the time.
All the time. Thank you so much for this wonderful hour. You can hear me,
Sorry
right?
about the ear pod situation, but
Yeah, it's all right. It's where we are very real here, no matter what we do. And I love that talking about that for 2 seconds. Actually, you do a lot of Instagram stories as well. It's like, and you're like, this is the luxurious and like on quotes, like quotations
yeah.
side of working at home, and I feel like represented as well because I do a lot of Insta stories of just me like right now, no makeup, no anything. I'm like, all right, let's just get to it. So it's a big part of what we do here, and it's absolutely fine. And I'm just so happy to have a chance to talk to you, have a chance for you to share your story once more, and in this case through our community, of course. The last 2 questions that we always ask is 3 words to describe you, my darling.
I don't know if they describe me, but they're things I aspire to. And one is to have gumption. Another one is to dare. One that I think I do embody is resilience.
Those are 3 wonderful words, and I definitely agree with them, knowing the little that I know from you and the whole lot that we've read and we shared. Definitely resilience, my goodness gracious, and daring. Yeah.
Well, that I want to do more of. See, that is
There you go.
even more.
Even more. There you go. I'm cheering you on right off the bat, without a doubt, for you to dare more and take leaps. I love taking leaps. I feel like I take a lot, and I love it. I love it. What are you thankful for?
Oh my God, everything. Just being alive, talking to you right now, my family, my health, what I do for a living, the husband I have, my father's alive. I mean, so much.
Absolutely everything. I love that. And we're really big on appreciation. I'm definitely very, very thankful too. Even against the technical difficulties and your dog barking, we're here, we're laughing, we get along. And I just thank you so much for sharing your love and light.
You know what? I do have to say, I do laugh a lot. And it's interesting because I do have this unrestrained laughter that my kids have been embarrassed by sometimes. And now they find it funny and they even record it. And sometimes
Oh my
it
gosh.
also sends me memories from Snapchat of me just laughing at wherever. And I've been able to do it even in difficult times. So I think that's pretty important to have.
That is very important, to keep that positive. I feel like that's how, that's what attracted me to you. Like your story, your background, that you're always so positive. Like when you read it, you're like, oh my
Not
God, like, not always. No, it's hard. Like people always like, you're so positive all the time, my dear. Then I'm like, it takes a whole lot to be positive all the time, ladies and gentlemen. Like it's a lot of
and it's okay, it's okay. It's not okay to stay that way. And that's
exactly. It's okay not to be okay. And that's something that we also stand by, but it's also more than that, it's like, look at the positive outcome and just be like, you can do it. Go forward. And look where it got you, of course, with everything that you have, with a beautiful marriage. I know family means a lot to you because that's what we see a lot through Instagram and through your social media and whatnot. So,
thing I do want to say before we end this is that I am, however, fully aware that this could change on a dime, because anything could happen, from a death to another recession. Who knows? I hope not, but it could happen. So I always tell my husband, I don't want to wait for tragedy to strike to appreciate what I have now.
Preach. I completely agree. This is why, I talk about a whole lot here, the Always Believer in general, no matter what it is, but what you're grateful for. I pop their question, that question all the time towards our community, because it's important. Also homeless, and I've been not knowing what's going to happen next. I've tried to kill myself when I was a teenager, like all these sorts of things just over and over again. And I'm like, to where I was to where I am is absolutely a dream come true. And I made sure that I'm grateful when I wake up. I'm grateful that I woke up. I'm grateful that I get to eat. I'm grateful that I talk to you. I'm grateful that everything. And it's so important to have that in mind, because I really feel like it changes your mentality and it changes your just your whole day in general. To be like, oh, I have to pay a bill, you can pay that bill. You're able to, and that bill gives you electricity for you to have internet and warmth and food and whatever, So it all goes down to that, and that's definitely the essence of who I am, precisely so. And I agree with that statement, because you never know. Life is too short.
You have all the you could have all the reasons to have all these excuses of why you're not happy, why you don't do this, why, because of your past. But what I'm finding is that crappy situations happen to almost everybody, and sometimes people who have had a perfect life are not happy, and that's the truth of it. It really is a decision.
It's, yeah, there you go. It's your
You know
life, your
this because
choice.
you're doing it every day.
Yeah. And yeah, like you're right. There's times there's moments that just you don't want to get up, and it's still difficult and whatnot. But just keep doing and find stuff that makes you happy. I mean, I have plenty of other little tips that I do through my program that I also teach as well, through just our post online, through anything that they can find us here. Just little things that make you move forward, because there's always a solution. Because if you can get out of it, it's not like, oh my gosh, she can do it, I can do it. It's only that it's like, I want to do it. I want to believe, and that's where the name comes from. I want to believe and focus on myself and know that I deserve something better. What is it? I don't know yet, but I know there's something there. I'm gonna go get that something. Just take the first step. Yeah. So thank you so incredibly much once more to just have your voice and share your story with the Go to Fly movement that we have here. And I know I'm going to link your Viva 50 and everything else underneath, of course. That's exactly where we can find you. Anything else that you want to say?
No, I think I could go on for hours, but that's just me. But
Perfect. I know, exactly. All right. So thank you very much, Team Flyer. New episodes every single Wednesday. I'll definitely link everything. Thank you for staying with us through everything of this interview. On my nerves as well, but now I'm calmer, so it's all good. And our doors are always open, either via 50 with Lorraine or here through the Always Believer, of course. And we'll talk to you really soon. Have a beautiful Wednesday and the rest of the week. Bye.